Joe Biden and Kamala Harris held their first campaign event together as running mates on Wednesday. It comes one day after the senator was announced as the vice presidential pick. The two spoke at a high school gymnasium in Biden's hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. Biden highlighted Harris's experience and described her as somebody ready to tackle the major issues the U.S. is facing this year. Natalie Brand was at that event and joins us now from Wilmington. Also joining us is Lynda Tran and Leslie Sanchez. Lynda is a CBS News political contributor and a Democratic strategist, and Leslie is a CBS News political analyst as well. All right, Natalie, let's go ahead and start with you. Talk to us a little bit about this debut event. Did we learn anything about the campaign's message when it comes to issues like the coronavirus crisis or racial injustice?
Well, we learned and we knew that those are some of the key issues that this ticket will be focusing on. But Senator Harris, in person for the first time as the newly announced running mate, did a really significant job of striking a balance, alternating between being an attack dog going after the incumbent President Trump and also advocating for this new ticket and talking about her long history with Biden, specifically her working relationship with his late son, Beau. And she was able there to give kind of an emotional account about the love and relationship between Joe Biden and his late son. And as you know, there's been some questions about the at times contentious rivalry that we saw on the primary campaign trail between the two. But today she came out as his fierce advocate and supporter, of course, the role of a vice presidential pick, the running mate, and also attacking President Trump in very sharp, direct language on everything from the coronavirus response to racial injustice and leadership. She said America is crying out for leadership. So I think we can expect to see this moving forward, her playing that tough role as she's done in the past. She's a former prosecutor, so coming out and taking some punches or punching against her challengers is something that she's known for, something we got a taste of today. And I just want to set the scene here. We are at a high school about 10 minutes from Biden's home here in Delaware. The speech, as you saw, was inside a subdued event in the age of the coronavirus. But there was this kind of spontaneous crowd of supporters who showed up to the high school, said that they heard about this event, saw where it was happening online, or heard about the media buzz, all of the tents set up here. And they showed up and just stood outside of the gym, kind of in a moment of solidarity of supporters together, coming out to try to catch a glimpse of the candidates and show their support, and a number of them remarking that they are very excited about this pick. Lana.
Yes, such a very different vice presidential announcement rather than any that we've seen in the past. Even the fact that all of us are in these tiny little boxes is part of the difference. So, Lynda, let's dive a little bit deeper into something that Natalie said. Kamala Harris also had a close relationship with Biden's late son, Beau, when they both worked as attorney generals in 2011. How much did this factor into Biden's ultimate decision then?
You know, Lana, I don't have any insider intel on that particular piece of the decision making. But what we know is that the former vice president was extremely close to his late son, Beau. In fact, in some of the content that we've seen him push out about his own autobiographical account, it was Beau who said that his father should run for president one more time. So that connection, I think, cannot be understated enough, and probably ultimately led to Joe Biden feeling a certain level of comfort and trust with the senator that he might not have felt with other top contenders that were vying for that position.
All right, Leslie, let's bring you into the conversation as well. Natalie was talking about some of the sharp elbows that were being directed at President Trump. The Trump campaign and the president himself have not withheld any of their punches either. But some of the shots that they've been taking at Harris since the announcement has been a bit incohesive, let's say. In one statement, the campaign said that Harris would try to bury her record as a prosecutor, which some have criticized as harsh. And then others saying the opposite was true, that she's someone who would appease the, quote, anti-police extremists. What is the messaging, or is the campaign just sort of throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks?
The interesting part about that is there isn't, you're right, one cohesive strategy that's moving forward, at least not one that's evident. And in some cases, you can't say that you can't say it's inconsistent with the campaign. The president leads his own message. He feels he's his own messenger. And what you're seeing is surrogates and people kind of grappling because, like a normal infrastructure within a campaign, there's opposition research. People have an idea, the direction they're going to go in, and they all kind of march to the same beat. This is not the case in 2020, and it's certainly not the case with this unconventional president. But I do think there's going to be some really interesting dynamics that are just unfolding and things that I'm learning just on the ground, especially in these battleground states. I expect to see this issue with Joe Biden. You know, normally we are correct by assuming that the vice presidential pick is somebody whose first job is to do no harm. And then they're going to be supporter and kind of the biggest champion of the president or the presidential nominee and march forward that way. But since this is a case where Biden, has said that he didn't want to run for a second term, that he said he was adamant about selecting a woman, it's going to create this other ulterior energy, this different effect, and people are going to have to look more deeply at this vice presidential nominee for those reasons. And there may be some more uneasiness within the Republican side, or at least within moderate voters, because she's not someone who is liked by all factions of the party. And I don't know that you could find a candidate that could fill that prescription right now anyway. So it's going to, you're going to see a little bit about that's very unconventional on this particular ticket. And also you're going to hear about this kind of bi-coastal liberalism. Look at the state of California. Look at it as an example of her type of leadership, Democratic type of leadership, and look what it's done to the state. Expect that to start being unpacked probably in the next, if not 24 hours, certainly in the next coming days.
Definitely. All right. Well, Natalie, what on that point that Leslie raised about, in essence, what Biden is saying is here, I'm handing the torch for the Democratic Party to this person, to Kamala Harris, who is a new representation, at least demographically, of the direction in which our country is heading. If he is successful and doesn't run for a second term, she would be the heir apparent then. You were able to speak with some potential voters ahead of Biden and Harris's event. Are people really excited about this ticket? Are they really excited about her in particular, recognizing obviously that you're in Biden country? I'm wondering how Harris is being received there and how much she's been able to up some of the excitement factor.
Well, I spoke to several supporters who say, number one, they're excited that we finally know the full ticket and that this pick was announced and they're ready to move on with the rest of campaign season. And others were extremely energized by this pick, saying that she brings balance to the ticket and a number of really important perspectives as a female elected leader, as a woman of color, as someone from a different geographical region. In fact, Senator Harris will be or is the first California Democrat on a major party presidential ticket. In fact, the first West Coast Democrat on a Democratic presidential ticket. So that's interesting. And they really believe that she will energize the Democratic base. And I also want to point out that there were some supporters here, again, who just turned up to the high school from the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a national sorority that was founded at Howard University Senator Harris's alma mater, and she was actually a member of that sorority, and they were really cheering her on. That's going to continue through campaign season. This is a very well-connected organization, and if I can, I want to share with you some of the thoughts from two members of Alpha Kappa Alpha.
We are just ecstatic, and we think he has chosen the best candidate that he could have chosen. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's historic. I mean, you think she's in an African-American immigrant family. There's so much in choosing Kamala Harris. And I'll say again that he has heard us. You know, he listened. He considered all that's going on in the world. And I think that Vice President Biden decided that he should listen to the public, and we want this. This is hope. This is evidence of hope.
And those supporters also said, look around and look at what this means for the little girls in the crowd. And that is something that Joe Biden also noted in introducing Senator Harris and talking about what this means for young women, particularly women of color. Lana.
Yeah, representation certainly does matter. So, Lynda, on that point, Harris out on the campaign trail when she was vying for the top seat, spoke very proudly of her heritage, of her diverse family. Not only is she the first Black woman to appear on a major ticket, she's also the first Asian nominee. So what does her selection mean in terms of some of these diverse voting blocks that Democrats and Republicans are trying to secure in November?
Well, Lana, as an Asian woman who is the daughter of immigrants myself, I think it's incredibly inspiring to see Senator Harris on the national ticket. And I think that sentiment, that perception is probably shared by lots of folks of Asian heritage, whether it's South Asian or otherwise, Southeast Asian, et cetera. But I think that part of what's so compelling is not just the fact that she has this immigrant mixed heritage background, but the fact that she's a woman and a woman of color more broadly, I think is something that's compelling at a time when we really need, from the Democratic perspective, we really need voters to be excited about casting their ballots. You know, there's been a lot of discussion and analysis about some of the potential challenges given the pandemic and public health considerations. And as we know, the Trump campaign has been doubling down on trying to undermine the idea of the voting process overall. So having somebody like Senator Harris, who's a groundbreaker, a trailblazer, I think is going to be a great shot in the arm for people who might have been, generally supportive of Joe Biden, but needed some intensity around a real historic reason to get out there and vote.
All right, Leslie, last question going to you. We have seen multiple state polls in these battleground states, including CBS's Battleground Tracker poll, and also a recent survey from CNBC that shows that Biden is leading Trump in 5 out of 6 battleground states. The Trump campaign potentially facing an uphill battle as the incumbent. So, for all the excitement about the second layer of the ticket, it's really the top that ultimately, at least in the past, has propelled voters to the polls. So what does the Trump campaign need to do if they want to win these states in November? And do they face more of an uphill battle now that Harris is on the ticket?
Well, Trump has certainly created this firestorm around himself. His style, his unconventional approach is something so unorthodox that it certainly causes a lot of hand-wringing on the right and on the left. But the interesting part about this, excuse me, on this starting here, Lynda was just talking about the need for energizing on the base. I'm going to pull this out. The energizing on the base. And that's very true. You need that on the left. On the right, it's also going to help gain a tremendous amount of support having her on the ticket. And as we get closer to the election, we're going to have a stronger idea of what this Biden-Trump, it ultimately comes down to them, looks like. If Biden were to win, he would be almost a decade older at inauguration than Ronald Reagan was, and people thought he really had limitations when he was running and what his presidency would look like. And those are real concerns, especially since he said, you know, he himself is starting to limit his ability to think about a second term. So that dynamic, that energy shot the Democrats need is also the consideration the Republicans are going to have about, you know, if they were concerned about Trump's leadership 4 more years, they're really concerned about a Biden presidency. And that's kind of the reality of today's really strange presidential election.
A really strange presidential election. I don't know if you heard me, Leslie, as you're putting your earpiece back in there, but you're right. This is a strange one.
I'm sorry.
But an exciting one on so many levels, too. So Natalie Brand, Lynda Tran, and Leslie Sanchez, thank you all for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.